Joining us on Hudson TV is Emerald Garner. Emerald, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Today, Governor Cuomo signed legislation regarding police reform, including the Eric Garner Anti-Chokehold Act. Your father, Eric Garner, died in July 2014 during a physical altercation with a police officer who held him in a chokehold when he yelled out that he couldn't breathe. No action was taken against then Officer Daniel Pantaleo until August 2019 when he was fired. Does today's signing of several pieces of legislation feel like some element of justice has taken place?
I feel as though it's a step in the right direction. As I've been saying, my father did not receive the justice that he deserved, but I know that with this piece of legislation, his legacy will live on. I know that nobody will suffer at the hands of a chokehold and not see any consequences. As you said, it's passed law. It's passed now. Governor Cuomo has signed it. It's signed, sealed, and delivered. And in New York State, you will face a felony if you administer a chokehold and restrict someone's breathing. And that's what we've been fighting for. This is the type of change that we need to see to make a change in the world.
Protests took place after your father's death. We saw thousands of people across the country come out again after George Floyd's death, when he was held in a chokehold for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Have these protests been about racism or police brutality?
I think the process is absolutely a lot of both because we're actually in a national crisis. We're in a pandemic right now, so there's no sports games, there's no movie theaters, there's nothing. There's nothing to do but to focus on why we're screaming Black lives, why we're saying that police brutality is real, why we're saying that police departments mostly employ, like not mostly employed, but a majority of the employed police officers are I want to say white supremacists, but that may not be the right terminology. But most police officers, they don't like Black people, and that's just obvious. It's clear. It's blatant. And in my father's situation, and in George Floyd's situation, and Sandra Bland's situation, and also in Mike Brown's situation, it's always a situation where they say they're feared because of they fear for their lives because of the color of our skin, but we're the ones that's losing our lives.
People know what they've experienced. For those who have not experienced racism, how do you explain what's been happening across the country?
I think that it all comes with educating yourself. For me, I watched the movie Roots in 7th grade, and I had some white students in my class, and I think that it's a part of educating yourself. Like for people who haven't experienced racism, just because you haven't experienced it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So I think people get lost in, oh, I've never experienced that. Like you could be a Black person and never encounter a white person that doesn't like Black people, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So movies like Roots, movies like The Hate You Give, movie like there's a lot of movies, there's a lot of documentaries, there's video, my father's video, Rodney King's video, Sandra Bland's video, Mike Brown's video, Ahmaud Arbery's video, George Floyd's video. There's video, there's footage, there's documentation of these injustices that have happened across America. In Florida, Trayvon Martin, and the person who killed him wasn't even a police officer. He was an auxiliary officer. He was the tenant association officer. He was a security guard at most. So it's just like it's always been a blatant disrespect between police brutality and Black and brown communities, and this is where it stops. So this is where we make change. I appreciate the love and the support. With the law has just been passed. Andrew Cares Act has just been passed where it's saying if somebody's asking for medical attention, you must give them medical attention. Eric Garner bill says that you cannot use excessive force and you cannot restrict the airways. 50A was repealed, and that means that all of these police reports that they're the police reports and all of the documentation that goes into the investigation can now be seen by the public. And this is the type of change that we need to see. We need to see transparency. We need to know what the cops' histories are because they had encounters with these people. It's coming out that they knew each other. George Floyd and his murderer, they knew each other. So that all needs to be revealed. And that's the change that people need to see.
You've touched on transparency. The other question I wanted to ask you is, what do you believe was lacking during your father's investigation?
I think what lacked in the investigation is the terminology. I think that I don't know what the federal government investigated. I don't know what their pieces of you know, their pieces of evidence, exhibit A, exhibit B, 1, 2, 3. I don't know exactly what it was. I know that they seen the video. I know that they heard testimony, but this is why we need to know exactly what happened in the investigation. Because if you're telling us, if the CCRB is telling us that they see something wrong enough for in Pantaleo to fire him, why didn't the federal government see something wrong and have him federally indicted? So we need to find out what's the disconnect. What is the loophole? What is the window that they're using? So the back door. Like what is that? What is that? We need to know what that is. So right now we're investigating the investigation. That's basically what we're doing. We're repealing 50A is we're going back and we're getting all of those police reports from the day of, police reports from everything, because in the CCRB, what was revealed, one of the officers, Officer Domingo, he reported that Eric Garner was unresponsive when he got there on the first day on 7/17. Now fast forward to August of 2019, he's saying that Eric Garner was responsive, that Eric Garner was alive, and Eric Garner was breathing. You lied and you perjured yourself. So why is he not in jail for lying under oath? So these are the connections that we need to make. So I think that these changes are significant, and we just need to do the work.
Emerald, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We've been speaking to Emerald Garner, an advocate, as well as the daughter of Eric Garner, whose death we will be remembering next month.